Thank you so much for being here and for the invitation. I'm very grateful that I can speak today about the book that I wrote together with psychiatrist Jim van Os, and also a bit more about my experience. And the title of my presentation is Transition in Psychiatry. And you will learn from the presentation a bit more about our core values and about our vision. There are many books already that are critical on the current system, and we would like to give a message of hope. The critics are very important, but we also want to give you a new opportunity or a new view. So that's our starting point. And if you have questions, please let me know. I'm very open to answer them and also to discuss with you further. At the end of the presentation, I also put my contact details and my website, so you can also contact me if you would like to. I would like to start with this slide. It's all about experience knowledge, and I had a psychosis, and I'm still worrying, is it really a psychosis, or was it an initiation, a mental breakdown, or a crisis? I think language is really important, especially in psychiatry, because if we use language that gives the people hope, I think it can be very healing. Like, for example, you are in a difficult situation, you need some rest, you need some guidance, and we are going to be here for you, instead of saying you have a brain disease and you need medication for the rest of your life. It's a completely different approach. So I'm always open for the approach that gives people space and hope. And also I think that the healer's gift is from his own wounds. So you can be a patient and you can heal yourself. And after that, you can also help other people. And that's also what I would like to do. I'm still in the middle of my healing process. Actually, at this moment, I'm in a mental hospital. I was reducing my medication. I'm using ketiapine. And I was reducing it, and we went a little bit too fast, but of course it was an experiment, and I went in a great feeling of fear, which was really scary. So I'm now here to recover, but it's going much, much better. So there's always hope, and there's always a new day. About healers, I think healers are not perfect. They are far from it, and they also went into the pain and suffering. And I think that's really important, because then you can also understand the other people. I saw a lot of darkness. I actually faced my own fears, my own demons, but also the demons of the collective. And that was quite scary. But I think it also has a meaning, because all these feelings and emotions have a place in our world. And today we are so focused on success and on showing our good sides, and put our dark side a bit away. But of course, the dark side also wants to get acknowledged and wants to get healed. So today, since I'm here, I felt I was rescued by God, because I was in such a great fear that I pray every day for healing and for rescuing our souls. And for me, it's really important an inclusive society where everybody has his own role. So also the people in psychiatry are people, of course. They're maybe a bit more sensitive, or they have a bit more trauma, or much more trauma. But we all have a role in the world. So sometimes I pray for all living beings, not only humans, but maybe also for entities or energies, that they may be free from suffering and pain. I learned that prayer from a Buddhist in Thailand. And when I feel scared or stressed and I say this prayer, I become peaceful. And it can actually help because I don't really like to use the benzodiazepines. I'm using them now and I'm getting off them. But learning to meditate and to be in contact with yourself, with your inner self, is so healing. And I was always also looking around myself for help, tried different approaches, but now I feel the trust that everything is already inside me. You just have to lie down and tune into yourself, and there's already so much power and wisdom and knowledge. So we can really trust on that. And sometimes we need other people, and sometimes we need to tune in. So it's actually tuning in and out, and that should be in balance. Yeah, so this is Albert Einstein. He's one of my examples. I think he was a bit an outsider too, and very original and creative, and of course very smart. I did a PhD in neuroscience, and this was the first sentence in my book: "Logic will get you from A to B, and imagination will take you everywhere." And I think this is really important in psychiatry because we are dealing with people and not with machines or something. And people are so complex. So actually, we are all miracles. We are all part of God. So imagination is actually the way to approach each other instead of another way. So I wrote this book together with Jim van Os. I met him about 1.5 years ago. And I met him earlier in my career. I wanted to become a psychiatrist or a neurologist. I was studying medicine. I was very ambitious. I worked very hard. Also in the laboratory, I did a PhD in neurobiology and published some papers. And after that, I did my clinical internships, and I spoke with him. And later, I got a position offered by somebody else, by a psychiatrist at the UMC. And I got the job, but I had to wait. So I went to the USA and did a postdoc in the lab of James Rodman, Nobel laureate in medicine and chemistry, 2013. I wrote him a letter. I didn't know him at all, but I just wrote him my desire. My desire was to completely understand the mechanisms of neurological and psychiatric disorders. And he invited me for an interview. And I was so honored. And maybe in 1 or 2 weeks, I was in the US for a few days presenting my PhD work. And he was really impressed by it. I really like to speak in public and to speak about my passion. And after that, I had an interview in London, UCL. And the idea was that I would lead a group of different scientists from the different disciplines to understand better neurological diseases and also psychiatric diseases, but more focused on neurological diseases like ataxia, epilepsy, and that kind of diseases. So I worked with the clinical geneticist, and he identified mutations. And then in the lab, we made this mutation and did different assays. And so I learned about biophysics. It was quite new to me, and also biochemistry. And it was a really interesting time. I learned so much, and I felt so honored that I had this job, and I was flying from the US to to London, and I lived in different places. But it was also a stressful period because, it was just a stressful job, and it was quite demanding, but at the same time also very fulfilling because I could identify myself with all this new knowledge and that I was able to learn. So it was a big chance as well, and I learned a lot from the people around me. At that period, I started getting other observations, other perceptions of the truth. So I had dreams, I had visions, I had contact with angels. I had downloads. I could read sentence from the Bible. It was quite amazing, and it felt actually as a gift and as support for this mission that I had there. And I was there completely alone without anybody, but I felt so strong. So there was some force outside of me that helped me and guide me through this process. And I'm still thinking, who was it? I think it was Archangel Michael, and maybe also God and other angels and my team of light, and maybe my guides, spiritual guides, that helped me through this process. So that was a beautiful experience. And I actually ended in the psychiatry with a psychosis. And when I came at the psychiatrist, I felt like this is not my world. I shouldn't be here. I'm not a patient. I'm just seeing more than average. But there are so many people who see more than the 5 sentences, and they don't come in psychiatry. And they are mediums or seers or light workers or oracles. So I felt like, oh my God, why am I here? And I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want a diagnosis. I didn't want medicine. So I kept quiet. At the end, I was a bit forced. So at the end, I got a diagnosis, which was psychosis, and I got medication. And the medication changed me. It changed my life, my body, my mind, my soul. And I use it now for 7 years. And I'm still struggling with it because I feel like my real soul is there. And when I'm reducing medicine, you can also see it in my eyes. My eyes become more clear. But now I'm back. I'm still using the Seroquel, so there's still some filter of chemicals around me. And I wish I could stop it, but I'm doing it quite slowly now with a good team that helps me. But my biggest wish is to live without and be completely myself. So that's a bit about me. And Jim van Os, I showed him some artwork I made. I'm also an artist. And I made artwork about my visions and my observations. And he invited me for a talk. It was a really nice conversation. I really feel the chemistry. Felt like, okay, we can do something together, maybe from a previous life or something. But I felt like we have to do something together. So we wrote this book, and it's about co-creation in mental health care. It's quite straightforward. Jim is really good in writing. He did most of the writing, and I did all the interviews. And we brainstormed. And for me, spirituality was really important, for example, and shamanism, personal growth, growing from a crisis. And so we worked in co-creation, and it went quite well. We did it, I think, in half a year or something. I made a cover of the book. And yeah, for this presentation, I always like to ask people, what are your core values? Because it really starts there. If you want to change something, a system, like for example, the mental health care system, it starts with the core values. And my core values are honesty, freedom, autonomy, respect, love, warmth, hope. Yeah, so I really would like to invite you to think about your core values and why you are here on earth. What do you want to say, or what do you want to manifest, or what do you want to do? And yeah, it starts there. So yeah, I introduced myself already a bit. I'm an MD, PhD in neuroscience, an artist, and I have an experience. I call it experience richer. I'm still working on the right word. Is it psychosis? Is it spiritual growth? Is it an initiation? Is it a new way of consciousness that I'm learning? Is it a test of God? It can be everything at the same time. So a bit more about my background. Yeah, I'm a medical doctor. At this moment, I don't work as a medical doctor, but I still have my license, of course. So maybe in the future, I would like to combine, traditional medicine and modern medicine, using my own experience. I'm also on a spiritual path, and I feel I have healing capacities. So I also did, for example, Reiki and these kind of things. Also very open-minded. So I think that's a good quality for a psychiatrist. So I did 2 masters in molecular medicine and neuroscience, PhD in neurobiology, postdoc at Yale in US. I did a part of the training of for psychiatry. Then I got psychosis. The psychosis is now 4 times, but for me it's hard to say is it a psychosis. The first time it took me a year before I went to see the psychiatrist. The other 2 psychoses were when I was still using Seroquel, and I saw that schizophrenia is a side effect of Seroquel. So sometimes I don't know anymore what is me and what is the effect of the drug. And the last psychosis I had, and why I'm now here in the mental hospital, is because of the rebound effect. So maybe it's not a real psychosis, but just a rebound effect in my head. I did the Rietveld Art Academy. I'm highly gifted, so I can think very well, but also very associative. It can be very nice when you make art or write, but when you start thinking too much, it can also be not so nice. So I got the label psychosis and mania, and it was bipolar disorder 1. And I don't like labels at all. I think we should approach everyone as an individual, because when I read about bipolar disorder, I recognize some things, but I think everyone is unique. And that's why all these classifications doesn't really work for me. I think it's more important to ask the person what he or she needs instead of the focus on the label. In some cases it can work, but be aware of that there's another person in front of you, and you can also be that person. So also I was actually struggling with my beliefs, because I believe in God and I really feel that God saved me in this last period. And then I'm thinking, what kind of religion do I have? For me, I feel like a Christian, but I see so many beautiful things in so many different religions or philosophies. So it really helps me too. But for now, I feel connected to the Christ consciousness. I also felt it when I was after my period in the US. I went to a Sufi retreat, and I was so full of emotions, and I was praying all the time for all beings. And I was praying to God to learn us how to pray. And I felt the connection with Christ, and that Christ entered the temple and maybe used me as a channel or something. It was such a beautiful experience. And after that, a lot of beautiful things happened. So, I see this really as a religious and spiritual process. And as a doctor, I came to sit on the other side of the table, which was quite weird because in the beginning, I really wanted to think along with psychiatrists. Maybe I have this diagnosis, or maybe I should do this treatment or this. And then I decided, no, I stop with being a doctor. I'm just a patient now. But I felt the psychiatrist was such a very nice woman, and it was just nice to be with her and to speak with her. It was already helping me so much. And we discussed a lot of things about how I was raised as a kid and the dynamics in my family. It was all really very helpful. So, and she took an hour every 2 weeks to speak with me. And I think it was so great. So I have really high hopes that there are working angels in the mental health care system, or at least people who have worked from their highest self. So I'm very hopeful next to all the things that can change. And I also have these visions. I see visions and dreams. And then I see buildings, very high light buildings from the sky, from heaven, that connect the earth to these kind of places. And I think they are built. So we are already getting there. And this is my vision on psychosis. I think it's more than a sum of symptoms. There's often a spiritual dimension, and sensitivity can be part of life. And I still have this sensitivity. I really like to be in nature and feel that the trees and everything around me feeds me, helps me, clears my energy field. So I really need to live in nature. Now I live in the middle of the city, so it's not really working. And I think you can also work with these kind of experiences. I also hear voices, or not really hear voices, but hear, I don't know, maybe they are voices, but also you can learn to work with that. But we also always have a free will. But sometimes God is guiding us to get us out of our comfort zone, out of our circle we are in, out of the matrix we are in. And God wants us to get out of it and be more powerful, because we are so powerful and we are also creators. And our book is called We Are Not God, but we are also gods. We also can create. And we are very much more powerful than we think. And sometimes due to education, or how you are raised as a child, or how you are approached in the mental care healthcare system, you get this low self-esteem and things, oh, I can't do anything. I need medication. I need help. And of course, that can be true. But on the other side, we can also try new things. Today, I was like, can I give this presentation? I'm in a mental hospital. Shouldn't I rest? But then I thought, no, life doesn't stop when you are in a psychiatry. We are still participants of the world. So, yeah, let's just go on. I also recorded a podcast in a phase when I was quite scared and confused, but I really had the idea, I show up for my duty, I show up for why I'm here, and it's otherwise a waste if you lose your call. So that's important, I think. Yeah, so this book and why now? Yeah, I think we are in this paradigm shift. A lot of people are thinking about mental health care, about education, and how we can do it in a different way. And I think we start much more living from our hearts, less from our brains, more with our hands, more with the nature. So we are so our society is so focused on cognition, and it's not really working because we see so many burnouts, and so many people are striving to be somebody or something that they can't be. And the psychosis teaches me to be in the moment, to be mindful. Even when I was giving this presentation, I had some technical issues, but I was just relaxed because I was in contact with God. And I know I follow his lead, it will be fine. So trust the moment, be in the moment. And this book is also about this moment. We wrote this exactly in this moment because it was needed in this moment. And maybe in 2 years we will write a complete new book, but I always try now, it's new for me, to follow the divine timing. And yeah, so the messages of our book, we came back to the question, what is mental suffering and how do we help someone and how do we organize a mental health care system? So it's actually what I said, go back to the basics, ask super simple questions again, and try to answer them again, because we are so used to work or be in some kind of system or protocols. But yeah, let everything go and start thinking again from the beginning. Yeah, we interviewed some people. I would like to give you some examples. This is Gilles de Grit. He's a dancer, and he also had psychosis. He didn't get any medicine because he thought that would affect my dance, and his dance was so important for him. I met him. It's a very nice guy. He's also into shamanism. I see this relationship between spirituality and psychosis a lot. And people make different choices in it. Some go into shamanism, other go to mediumship, other are very religious. And yeah, for me, the Christ consciousness is most important now. But he says, I always call psychosis the womb of creativity, and people with psychosis are often very creative. So it's sometimes feels like a curse, but it's also a gift. So maybe it's our job to make this curse a gift, and not only for ourselves, but also for our environment. Maybe as one people you cannot change the world, but you can change a bit the people around you. But everybody has his own free will, of course. But I noticed that there was a lot of how do you say, ideas about psychosis that are quite negative. For example, that you can be aggressive or destructive. And that's why people are sometimes a bit afraid of it. But I try to show my surrounding. I'm just going through a very deep process. I'm a bit confused by what I see or experience. But I got this. I got this, and it's quite hard, but the opinion of other people can be very hurtful. So I also what I learned was never speak badly about somebody, because it's coming back to you as a karma, or as a, how do you say, it's never good. So always if you try to speak normal or positive about others, no matter what they did or what they experience. And then Stijn van Heulen, I also interviewed him. He's from Belgium, and he speaks also about psychosis. sometimes I find it a bit hard that professionals speak about psychosis who did not experience psychosis, because it's a different approach. But we cannot, of course, force psychiatrists to become in psychosis. It happens or it doesn't happen. But I think he said I mean, he have seen a lot of people, and he can talk quite well about it. And he also says that it's important to connect with people's positivity. I think that's really important. And what I noticed when I talked with him, he's saying, psychosis is the state of mind where language is not any longer capable of describing what's going on. And it's really true. So I used a lot of art to express my psychotic episodes. So it's actually, it's so unreal or not integrated in our society that there's not the language yet to describe it. And that makes it so hard for psychiatrists and insurance companies to use the right terms, or when we deal with these people in these states. And then Martijn Kolen, Martijn Kolen is a really nice guy, and he can speak very well. His father was, I think, a priest or somebody religious. And he says it really requires a fundamental reorientation of being human and how we want to relate to each other in life. And that's, I think, a great point, because I was already talking about inclusiveness. We, as human, it's a natural behavior to separate people in boxes. Okay, these are the rich people, these are the poor people, these are the successful people, these are the losers. These are the mental health people. These are the sick, crazy people. Women, men, everybody is trying to divide all the time. And I think in this paradigm shift, we are now getting to oneness. We are all one. And I think that's a really important starting point in psychiatry, because I remember that when I was doing my internships in psychiatry, sometimes the psychiatrists make a little bit of fun of the patient. And I can understand it's a hard job, you have to make some fun, but remember that you can be that person, or you could have been that person. So it's not nice to see them as different or as crazy, or we are all human and we are all vulnerable, and it's okay to have emotions. And in this society, emotions are almost pathological, because we have to go all in a certain way in a rat race. We have to have this specific life with a house, a family, a job. We pay our rent or other things. But if you do it a little bit different, you're not average anymore, and then you get a label. And I think this diversity is so important. We are all different, and together we are one. So also in psychiatry, don't be afraid of emotions. Emotions are part of life. Don't be afraid of a bit eccentricity, for example. But of course, if people suffer, we need to help them, but don't judge. So we think that mental suffering is more than a DSM classification. It's more like peaking and down, and it's also more like a context, for example, our body or trauma. And our core values were in the book: humanity, open-mindedness, and creativity. And also, when you see a patient, how are you going to treat him or her? Use your creativity. There are all these standard therapies, but maybe a person needs just to move to a new surrounding with more nature, or need other friends, or need to get clear her boundaries, or need to find her or his soul mission, or needs to speak about trauma. Everybody's different. Everybody has different needs. And for example, EMDR can work for somebody, but maybe somebody else is not ready to face a trauma and is more in the surviving modus. So we have to respect also the phases and the pace of the patient or client. So yeah, focus on a good life instead of reducing the symptoms. It can be hand in hand, of course, but when you're a patient, you can still work. You can, what is a patient? If you have problems, if you are mental suffering, you can still do what you like to do. For example, do your passion, like for example, drawing, music, speaking with people, go to church or other things. For me, creativity and spirituality is really important. And also be aware that we can heal. And we can also ask God for healing. And what I do, I pray every night to be in these cosmic places of healing. I think my brain is just overloaded with information and needs to be some rearrangements in my head. And it takes time, and be patient, have respect for the time. Sometimes when I'm in this psychotic, manic episodes, I feel like I have to save the world. But then I'm playing for God. I'm not God. So respect also the other beings, angels, that can help us. We don't do it alone. But you have to ask, because they cannot help you if you don't ask them, because we have a free will. So we also bring this work in public. It's called Jam. It's in the Netherlands, and one of the things is working in groups, using the experience, knowledge, and the anatomy. So that's really important. The anatomy is important, but also the guidance and knowledge of the psychiatrist is really important, because I felt like, oh, I want this and I want that, but the psychiatrist knows a lot too. So respect each other. We are as human equal. And when it goes wrong, I don't like to focus on things that go wrong anymore, because then you manifest it. So I skip this slide now. I already made my critical points in the past. It's not my job, so I skip this slide. And this one too. So I would like to end to say what I'm working right now. I'm reducing my meds. I'm doing this since 2.5 months or something. I made an art project out of it. I do a lot of collages, drawings. Yesterday I made this drawing. It really helps me to express myself, because all these experience, what I said, language can be so limiting. So then art is really helpful. You can also support me. This is the link. It's a GoFund link, crowdfunding link. And I'm actually respecting the general medicine. So the doctors here are very helpful, the nurses. And next to that, I try to find people who can help me also with the spiritual path. But I came to the conclusion that I'm my own guide and all my knowledge is already inside me. But it's always good to speak with other people about it. So it's a crossover project. And at this moment, there's a lot of attention in the debate, in the scientific debates about reducing medicine and neuroleptics. And I heard different things. Some people say you can do it cold turkey. Other people say you have to take at least a year or 2 years. Other people say this 50. Yeah, they all say different things. So I am an experiment, and that makes it sometimes quite scary because I'm also a human, and I can handle some of this withdrawal effects, but some are too much to handle. And actually, I went a bit in a dark place lately because we went quite far fast, and I was not able to express myself to the psychiatrist enough to say, this is going too fast, this is too much for me, I'm going through a hell. I tried to say it, but I was also afraid. So I want to recommend, if you do this, be really, really, really honest about what you feel, because I always have this feeling, oh, I can do this, oh, I can handle this, but sometimes it's just too hard, and then you have to quit or make an action. I called with the crisis team one night about every 15 minutes because I was so scared. So this medicine have an effect on our brains, and when we are reducing it, there's a total new balance, and this new balance is quite intense to handle. So if you do it with care, and make sure you have some people around you that you really trust. And of course, it's a very good plan to reduce the medicine and be at the same time just also very responsible. So that's my message about that. I never expected that it goes like this, that I will enter a mental hospital again, but I'm happy here. It's quiet, I get good care. But I started benzodiazepines again, and that's, of course, it was necessary. But yeah, there are always two sides on it. And then I do online trainings about psychosis and about sensitivity. I do coach calls, creative assignments, webinars. I'm actually have on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn a community of people who follow me, also having similar experiences. So that's really nice. I'm also having a course about the chakras, and I'm offering workshops and education about this subject, especially for people in the healthcare, to get out of their head, out of the way of protocols and thinking and diagnosis, and just work with your hands, more with your soul, with your heart. I think that's the way. And the medicine sometimes block this feeling. So yeah, we have to work on it. So for me, this was my presentation. I have this is my email address. You can contact me, and this is my current websites. I offer some online trainings. I also offer readings, channelings. I sell my artwork, and I do online, offline trainings. And this is my website of my artwork. It's a bit older. Since young age, I have exhibition, won some prizes for young talent. So it's actually my passion to always stay connected with art. And of course, I would like to thank Jim van Os. It was very nice to work with him, and all the people who contributed to my book, who I spoke with. And of course, you, the audience today, and the public. And I hope to be there next week. Let's see. And thank you for now.